watched a lot of coming of age movies recently, and there's something troubling about them to me these days as someone who has sort of lost direction in life. And watching them now sort of makes them feel like they're choking me, as they are a type of genre that is brimming with emotion. And they make me feel the way that Supercut by Lorde makes me feel. That might genuinely be one of my favourite songs, and even though it's just a song, it makes me feel like every single one of my senses is filled when I listen to it. So I have some coming of age movies to recommend so that you can also feel like you're in Supercut by Lorde. This video is also high-key influenced by me watching this video like 2 years ago at 4 AM, mid-COVID, feeling like my life was being taken apart like a puzzle after it was already finished, even though my life is not finished. My first Borat movie I watched was Marriage Story, and I really didn't get it per se, so I wasn't really sure I was gonna like this, so I'm glad to say that this was actually very revolutionary for me actually. It's about a freshman in college connecting with her soon-to-be stepsister, and how they go about a night filled with sort of fun and flavour, which then suddenly blooms into this incredible relationship of newfound care and intimacy that neither of the sisters had before. It's so much fun, and it's written impeccably, and the tone carries an emotional weight akin to this song. And the film absolutely embodies the lyrics, all the magic we gave off, all the love we had and lost, even if it is about sisters and not lovers. Secondly, we have Real Women Have Curves. Like a year or more ago, this movie was doing the rounds because people were comparing it to Lady Bird. And honestly, having now watched this film, I think we really do have to despair at the state of media literacy, because there's no copying from Greta Gerwig aside from maybe the very last scene, which, let's be honest, isn't what people are insinuating when they say this film was ripped off. I also think that Lady Bird is much better written, even if this film is absolutely still moving. This film is about a Mexican girl played by the incredible America Ferrera, whose parents want her to help out at her family's sewing business instead of going to college because they can't afford it, and how she, in opposition, wants to carry on her studies. However, in the time between the end of school and the first term at uni starting the next year, she starts working for the business and realises there's a lot of merit and hard labour that goes into her family's way of life. The film is about family and community and race and culture all in one. It's about that first-gen experience, about pushing through societal boundaries, and whilst your people are always going to be with you, perhaps you need to and even simply want to do something different. Therefore, this film is very, very, these visions never stop, these ribbons wrap me up, coded. Lastly, for the first verse, we have The Spanish Apartment. This film feels like a French GCSE textbook. Like those pictures, those listening exercises, the writing passages they made you do in language class are all wrapped up in this film. It's a film about an Erasmus exchange student and his escapades on his year abroad in Barcelona. He's a bit of a flop, he's truly a self-pitying fool, but this film feels like what you expect a year abroad to feel like. It's full of drama, it's full of character and life-changing experiences, all alongside people you will probably never see again, but will remember forever. The editing and colour in this film firmly place it in the early 2000s, and whilst too raunchy to show a class of 14-year-olds, it absolutely was made to watch at the end of term when everyone no longer wants to do the speaking exercises we all suck at. The film, like the other two, are about moving on, but moving on with all the love that you've learnt from growing, and so The Spanish Apartment is, but when I reach for you, there's just a supercut wrapped in a film. There are actually sequels to this film, but maybe not. If we end it here, it definitely feels that way. So for the second verse, there's Empire Records. The movie spans one day at a record store and follows all of the employees throughout the day and what they get up to. It's a cult hit and sort of a lay-around movie, something you throw on, something that kind of reminds you of messiness at the end of the day. And I know I'm meant to be describing this myself to you, but I'm going to let some critics do some of the heavy lifting for me because honestly, I don't know what to say, and they say it better. So Jason Bailey says, it's high on charm and low on quality, the writing is pedestrian at best, the characters are paper thin, and director Alan Moyle lets the music do the heavy lifting. And Josh Sorakash, I will put the name on the screen, explains, Empire Records strikes a chord with people, not in spite of its flaws. It's a fun, immensely enjoyable celebration of irresponsible optimism and youth. And in a fun description, Tim Brayton calls the screenplay clattering. This is all true, but the film ends with a sequence where all the characters are dancing on the roof of a record store, happy and together. And not to be overly cringe or anything, by referencing this, because even saying this makes my skin freeze over a little, but the film evokes the idea of knowing you're in the good times when you're in them. You know, they already know that there's no regrets looking back on this. They're already happy to be there. All of the piss-poor written romance that barely has any weight to make you give one shit about it in this film it is still the embodiment of I'm someone you may be my love, I'll be your quiet afternoon crush, be your violent overnight rush. So, Boogie Nights, the next one, it is In Your Car, the Radio Up, Make You Crazy Over My Touch. I mean, is it really anything else? It's PTA at his best, reliving the 70s. So, this is about a young boy who decides to become a porn star, and we follow the consequences of that through a tumultuous journey of fame, money, and all-American naivety. Maybe it's a little bit overblown with the screen time, but he's Paul Thomas Anderson, and I don't even get views, so what can I say that he doesn't already know, you feel? Just watch it. It's a real scope of decadence and the fall from grace, and how we go on to refreshing new beginnings, and in hindsight, I cannot believe I watched Licorice Pizza in the cinema before I even watched this. Moron behaviour for me personally. Polite Society is all about, we keep trying to talk about us. Perhaps the film doesn't fit in the video because I didn't mean to add it in, but I watched it recently and it's a fun little British movie for the South Asians. The writing is moronic at times and is very clearly a debut feature film, but it's fun. It follows two sisters as one of them gets married, how the other one can't really believe her sister is giving up her dreams to become a bride. And also this movie is sometimes about how life is about having fun and hanging with the girls, and that's a good enough reason to watch a movie. Water Lilies. You know when you're 14 and it's the middle of the summer and the window is open and the fan is on and you look at the ceiling and you feel your emotions cloying at your chest, but you are also somehow peaceful, even though your stomach feels oddly uncomforted by your atmosphere. That's what Water Lilies does to you when you watch it. It follows two teenage girls who look unbelievably young, and it makes you angry at how Hollywood keeps casting adults to be teens as they should generally look like this, and how gross it is to ever sexualize teens because, oh my god, they look like they're 12. And we follow them through a summer at the swimming pool where one of them is in a artistic swimming group, and how their lives get tangled up in exploring their sexuality, and how that can sometimes mean that they do it both on their own and sometimes unconsensually, not on their own terms. It leaves you in a daze, and like your chest is full of that fluffy mattress stuffing material. Speaking of dazed, here comes Dazed and Confused. On the last day of school and deciding how to proceed with the next year of school, the last year that is, it's all about seeing your life as a supercut of you and all of your homies. It's about realising what you want, who is important, why you do the things that you do, and going out to get what you want. As another 90s movie fetishizing the director's youth in the 70s, Dazed and Confused follows the repression and hangout cinema at its best. Linklater, you will always be famous. It's just a supercut of us, is what Linklater says in this film, because he's right. When you remember high school, it's just a supercut of us, regardless of who us ends up being to you. The Diary of a Teenage Girl. This movie surprised me in that it's about Alexander Skarsgård being a nonce. Not entirely. It's just another movie about a girl discovering her sexuality. This film feels a little bit more empowering as she owns it a little bit more. She shows actual enthusiasm for sexual activity, and promiscuity is shown as something that is both positive and negative depending on the situation. The actor in this is clearly not 15, and all of her actions, to an extent, for a lack of better word, are unhinged. Unhinged they are. Yet she's a teenage girl, and that's just how it goes. And also she turns her hurt and newfound experiences into art. She has indeed fallen into all the stages and the stars. Frances Ha. Okay, so watching this movie on a random afternoon after work was an insane move because I genuinely believe this movie has rerouted the trajectory of my life and rewired my brain in a way that can never be altered. This is about a lost woman who sort of left askance when her best friend sort of leaves her behind, when her life starts to evolve, and it's genuinely sometimes my worst nightmare. And also something I'm undoubtedly convinced will happen to me in the next few years. Reading about this type of character in books makes my heart ache. Like, this character is very popular in books because most people feel like this unfulfilled castaway unpreparedness for life is very prevalent in women's 20s, but watching it feels so much better than reading about it. Maybe it's the Bornback Gerwig double punch writing together to provide the emotional kill shot to my spiraling brain actually makes me so fond of this film. Whereas authors who write this 20s coming of age story write indulgent suffering that no one wants to get behind. I don't need a happy ending, but I don't know if I need to suffer with the character like I do when I read books of this genre. Here, instead, I am this character, in a way. I feel her pain, yet I feel happy for her nonetheless. Watch this movie. Frances, again, is with the stages and the stars now. You know, she's healed, but the wound that was formed has not been forgotten. Edge of 17. Everyone loves this movie so much. It's Twitter's little darling, and it's about teenage strife when your best friend starts dating your brother, and your friend sort of picks your brother over you. I'm 21 now, but I can't lie to you, I'm still on Haley Steinfeld's side of the movie. The film generally just has a vibrancy, and Steinfeld's performance has a despairingly bright energy to it, which together burst so hard over this film that it makes it hard not to relate to the frustration of her life, even when none of this has ever happened to you. When you call, I'll forgive and not fight, and come home to my heart pitch a perfect note to tell you what this film really wants to say. Miss Juneteenth. This follows the Miss Juneteenth pageant, which is entered by the daughter of the former contestant winner, Turquoise. She enters the pageant to be able to win a scholarship for her HBCU of choice, and this film follows the idea of cyclical behaviour, family, responsibility and history, all of which is centred on the opportunities that can be gained by winning the pageant. It's a lovely portrait of a mum and her daughter and how trust and love must be implicit in that relationship for it to work. And I love the ending. I love Turquoise, who is, in my head I do everything right, and Kai, her daughter, who is because ours are the moment I play in the dark. Because sometimes coming of age isn't really just about becoming an adult. The next two actually feel very reminiscent of each other. We follow in Little Forest a girl who has recently failed her exam to become a teacher and has returned home to the countryside to cope. So she's left her life behind to instead kind of become a little self-sufficient through the natural elements at her disposal in her childhood house and everything natural around her. She returns to her old friends she hasn't kept in touch with and sort of learns to embrace nature in a way that she never had before, because all the time that she lived in the countryside, she wanted to leave. Only Yesterday is also about a woman who goes to the countryside. However, she is there to help with that year's harvest. So the film also flips between the present and the past as she ruminates on her outlook on life and about getting older and what is and was expected of her because of this. Again, the main character also becomes very deeply thoughtful and has really poignant, emotional beats about her relationship with nature and what the countryside ends up meaning to her. To me, the ending of Supercut feels like you're drifting underwater. Your ears are full as the sound appears muffled and distant, a feel of leaving something behind, a moment fading to the past, and that is what both of these films represent. And I actually recommend them as a double feature even. So yeah, that was my entire recommendations of the coming of age movies that feel like Supercut. And I specifically, picked these because these are the ones I watched recently. There are lots that probably feel a little bit more like Supercut than the ones I've perhaps picked. But I wanted to make a video of the ones I was really compelled to watch recently. And also, this time of year really feels very coming of age because it's sort of the end of the academic year, moving on, and that feels like when a lot of coming of age movies are either set or when there's big cruxes around those moments. So yeah, even though I don't go to school anymore, still felt drawn to that genre during this time. And also I highly recommend watching that edit video. It's very good and I think it will change your life. So yeah, that's my recommendations. Hope you like them. Hopefully you watched some of them, especially the foreign ones. I feel like some of them are a bit underrated, especially Little Forest and Spanish Apartment, weirdly underrated, considering I think it's quite popular abroad, in Europe. But yeah.